Even though that I've moved on from doing Halloween Mania after going through the stress of doing 31 Halloween reviews last year, I'm still gonna do 5 reviews off of Halloween slash horror themed. Like, throughout this year, even though that my schedule has changed due to this mental state and stress that I'm in right now, I am still attempting to at least make some multiple videos along the way, and Christmas is another possibility. Well, I'm gonna be reviewing Christmas material since I skipped that last year in favor of the Gravity Falls Christmas fanfic for fanfic readings. So through every Friday throughout October, I'm gonna be reviewing a Halloween slash horror episode. So let's start off with Terror Tales of the Park 3, since I'm gonna be continuing on reviewing these episodes yearly from regular show. Everyone's having a Halloween party, and people, mainly the main characters, agree to whoever tells the scariest story gets all the Halloween candy, while the worst person of their story has to wear the Halloween costume until Thanksgiving. Wigby's story is a serial killer, which is a bed that harms Wigby. Muscle Man's story centers around a scarecrow pumpkin that turns him and his friends into pumpkins, and Benson's story tells the story of a poltergeist who lived in the same building that Wigby and Mordecai lives in, and in the story, he tells them to leave before poltergeist arrives, otherwise bad things will happen as usual. And since it's Mordecai and Wigby and the other characters we're talking about, they make a bet on $100, which everything backfired, as the ending, similar to Benson's story from the last episode, has Mordecai and Wigby dead. Only this time they get eaten by the poltergeist. If you ask me, every time I think about Benson improving as a character, you can also have the compliment of him improving on expressing his Halloween story skills, because this story is a lot more serious compared to the last story from the last episode. And even though I don't agree with Wigby on saying how stupid Benson's story was from the second Terror Tales Park episode, I can instantly say for a fact that Benson deserves all the candy for saying the most terrifying story, especially that he was late to the Halloween party. So when it comes to ranking these Terror Tales, I would pick Wigby in last place, Muscle Man in second, with Benson taking first place. When it comes to Wigby's story, for what it is, honestly, beds moving does happen. Like, there was a Codename Kids Next Door episode where the children get stuck into bed, even though it was all taking place in number 2's dream. So that really feels a little terrifying. And when it comes to this, with regular show's take on having the beds move, honestly, it's not terrible. Like, it's Wigby's point of view on expressing his story, since I'm pretty sure that the last episodes didn't have Wigby telling his story. So if this is mostly the best of what you can do, then it kind of sums up onto why the ending of that episode, this story was honestly the hilarious moment in the entire episode. Benson hires the serial killer Bed, and this leads to the following day where everyone else uses axes to kill him. And this also leads to Benson giving Wigby a promotion, and this leads to Muscle Man questioning onto why they don't get a promotion, only for the end logo of Wigby's story, which is way more humorous than it needs to be, because, in all honesty, with this being the weakest, it can be the most humorous compared to the other two stories in this episode. Muscle Man's story centering around the Scarecrow pumpkin Honestly, it's terrifying and really impressive that his point of view on making a scary Halloween story, not really Halloween, but a terror story, really showcases that he does have creative imagery. And when I mean creative imagery, horror imagery, I've always seen the pumpkin scarecrow turning everyone, including him, into pumpkins. Which, honestly, we've seen other characters from other cartoons that turn people into something whenever they touch them. Like, this type of stuff isn't new, but at the same time, still terrifying. Despite Benson's story being the most superior, I can't deny that the Pumpkin Scarecrow was the best character in this episode. With how menacing he is and the fact that he turns people into pumpkins, it's kind of difficult to look at the other stories. While on Benson's side, it's mainly him understanding history, while on Rigby's side, it's mostly him trying to come up with ideas by having the bed being a serial killer. But when it comes to Muscle Man's story, honestly, if he picked a character that isn't a pumpkin or anything Halloween related, I wouldn't buy it. Because for me personally, every time I look at the pumpkin scarecrow in this episode, honestly, there was no escape. And just by seeing them turning into multiple pumpkins in the morning, honestly, it's way more terrifying in the fact that we really need to stop looking at Muscle Man as the most annoying type of the group if we never watched more and more of this show, because this really convinced me that he does have creativity. Getting into Benson's story, the more I think about it, it showcases of how the poltergeist is so deranged to the point that the years that he lives in does showcase that Benson has a lot of history lessons that the other characters just refuse to believe in, since that they're part of the modern age. But what Poltergeist does back then is not something that people like Mordecai and the others would say. And in all honesty, the fact that this showcases of how deranged this guy is when it comes to him living in the same building that they live in 200 years ago. If all this is real, it will probably ruin the nature and believability of these telltales if the characters find ways to go around them like they did in previous episodes. Because it won't make me convinced that these episodes would be good if any of this is real, because if all of this was real and not in story form, then there would have been just one Halloween episode. And if we keep continuing on and on, each Halloween or Telltales episode would be a lot more repetitive with the same outcome over and over again. Granted, the same outcome is the characters being turned into something or getting killed, but for the Halloween spirit, it works. Yes, it's obvious that none of this is canon when it comes to the stories, otherwise these episodes won't even work. And thinking of how that if all this was real, then I'm pretty sure that the park itself will probably have the worst Halloween of all time, year after year, with October being the worst year. And truth be told, I would probably have a miserable time if October was like that year after year, to the point that Halloween will probably be one of the most dangerous holidays, but also one of the most hated holidays for that reason alone. I would probably think that this show would be a lot more ridiculous if they attempted to find so many ways to make the later Telltales episodes to be way more ridiculous, with the idea that everything is real and not in story form. Which sums up a lot that we're halfway into this when it comes to the amount of ideas that they can use by having the characters get killed. And considering that other cartoons have did this format similar to this, with the characters telling stories with each other, then honestly, there wouldn't be any possibilities when it comes to what they did in these episodes. I reviewed Amphibia that had a similar premise to We Bear Bears episode, which is Charlie's Halloween thing, and thinking of how the other episodes would have worked out if the stories were real and not in story form. Honestly, there wouldn't be a lot of Halloween material, and I will probably have a difficult time finding other Halloween material to fill in for not only this month, but also the last year's schedules of October 2023 and 24. So, if it wasn't for these episodes, which I'm pretty sure they're not the first ones that did these formulas, the future episodes from other cartoons with a similar premise wouldn't even exist in the first place. Granted, they probably didn't take inspiration from these episodes, but the way I see it, the people who made these episodes really have fun to the point that they really wanted to explore more and more with each chance they get. Because judging of the fact that they have regular show returning, they're not hesitating on making a 7th Terror Tales Park when they get the chance. With that being said, it is going to take a long while for me to talk about the 7th episode of the Terror Tales episodes, but at the very least, I'm still continuing on spreading Halloween spirit in some other way despite moving on from Halloween Mania entirely. So I'm giving this episode an 8 out of 10, and before next week's Halloween/horror episode review, there's a bonus video coming out on Tuesday.